Some of my favorite games in my life have been ones that I didn't own, ones that involved me going somewhere. It was a treat when I was able to go to the mall and check out the local arcade. Now as an adult, I've played a lot of arcade games, but it was only recently that I decided to keep records of those that I've played. And today we're going to talk about 10 arcade games that made me want to staple my nuts to my inner thigh. Games I truly didn't enjoy. Now these aren't the worst games in the arcade spectrum, they're just 10 games that made me want to scream into the endless void of conscious existence. You know what I mean? Let's begin. Scramble is a horizontal shooter, which if you've watched previous episodes of mine, you know I'm already not a fan of. The sole exception was Earth Defense Force by Jaleco, because they tried. As for Konami, Scramble is literally just push-a-button simulator, no more no less. The sole difficulty in this game is based around dropping bombs on fuel tanks while shooting things that may float up. As the game progresses, we'll have to weave through physical obstacles, and once we make it to the end, Konami graces us with a message saying, "Congratulations, you completed your duties, good luck, next time again." It's just a lazy game, and I can give credit for Konami sticking their necks out to try to make a horizontal shooter, and obviously they would figure it out later with Gradius, but this is a stupidly boring game. Long before Aero Fighters was created by Video Systems Limited, they dipped their toes in the horizontal shooting world with Rabio Lepus. Silly name, right? We play as Rabio or Lepus, if we have two players, a floating set of rabbits that shoot tiny projectiles at enemies or use their rabbit punch to take out enemies that get close to us. Honestly, both are incredibly unreliable. The big reason I dislike this game, though, is that the characters we control are stupid slow. Progress at the DMV during the late afternoon slow. And there's nothing we can do, at least from what I've noticed, to make them go any quicker. Add in the fact that the sprites are ballooned up 33% of the screen and that the projectiles conflict with the background because they're rainbow colored, there's just a lot of stuff that's going on that I found irritating. I did beat this, and while it wasn't the worst of the worst to come from Video Systems, it's definitely not fun, at least to me. It might be to you, I don't like it. Known as Hard Puncher in Japan, the final round is a boxing game that feels more like a Rock'em Sock'em robot simulator. Now I can give props to Konami for caring to represent boxing accurately because other companies, even in the 80s, struggled to pull off boxing. We can choose from one of two boxers who we have to allocate points to. We have 100 points to mess around with and can divide them among speed, power, and stamina. Then we begin our short career in trying to rise to the top of the Konami Boxing Association. It's a rather fast-paced game, and our first fight, it's not so bad. I actually had high hopes for this because it does look good, but as the game goes on, it quickly becomes a coin eater. But the good news is, if you survive 2 rounds, you can do a training session minigame that increases your points. But even if you had the best points allocated, you're going to run into the issue of a brutally difficult AI. At least that's what I ran into. This is going to be a hot take, and I don't fucking care. One of the joys of playing Neo Geo titles in the arcade was the acceptance that you're going to play a game from one of the 3 in-house developers of SNK with varying levels of sadomasochistic energy flowing through the joystick and directly up your asshole. And in the case of Magician Lord, you're getting a big ol' alpha Denshi fist right up your ass with no lube. In fact, from personal experience, the only SNK studio that I could actually tolerate was Nazca Corporation, the makers of Neo Turf Masters and Metal Slug. Noise Factory and ADK, they both tended to be mean, ruthless game developers. In the game, we play as Elta the Magician trying to recover magic tomes from Gal Agiesi's forces, all the while doing some of the most unfair platforming I've ever experienced in the arcades. You might as well finance the amount of quarters needed to beat this one because it's a fucking doozy of a time. Elta himself, he's whack as a protagonist, but if you collect orbs, similar to Sega's Altered Beast, you can transform into more powerful beings such as the Dragon Warrior or the Raijin. They give you boosts, but good luck getting them without dying from some shitty jump. Remember video systems? We just talked about them. They made Rabiolepis. Well, after Rabiolepis, they made Turbo Force, which in my opinion is one of the worst vertical shooters I have ever played. It's an absolute fever dream. You pilot a flying car that might as well be shooting spit wads at the enemies because these enemies are bullet sponges, and the only way to practically destroy them is with power-ups. So if you die, good luck. I remember seeing somewhere that the development lead of the team mentioned the developers were given free reign to do whatever they wanted to do. There really wasn't any restriction on what they could put in this game, so you'll go up against Megazord, turret lizards, airplanes, floating pieces of earth, tanks, the flying head of Satan, you name it, it's there. Also, you remember how I mentioned that you needed power-ups? Even if you were to keep them, they degrade incredibly quick. So the only way to beat this hunk of shit is to consistently have power-ups to like level 9 because it tapers off, it wears off over time. And the last thing you want to do is go down to fire level 1 on the boss because it'll be like trying to dig a well with a toothpick. Trust me. Shaolin's Road. Whew, okay. Konami made Yar Kung Fu, right? Well, this is Yar Kung Fu if the only thing we could do is kick. It was even named Kicker in the United States. We play as Wan Pyo, who's being held captive at the Jaken Temple owned by the Yamucha gang, who killed our master, Rao Chu. So it's time to use our lightning-fast kicks to escape. At least that's what Nintendo's store page mentions for the plot. Alluring, isn't it? If you play this, you'll very quickly realize this game has some of the worst hitboxes I've ever encountered in a fighting game to date. It's janky, wonky, and grossly unfun. In the arcade world, I've only played a handful of puzzle games: Tetris, Puzzle Bobble, Magical Drop. It's not something I went out of my way to enjoy because when I'm playing games in an arcade, the last thing I want to do is think. Well, Locomotion is exactly that. It's an arcade puzzle game where we need to swap tiles out to make a pathway for a train in the hopes of making it pass through a loop with a score bonus that tapers down. So we have a slider puzzle with trains, that's it, right? This game is a tedious, stodgy, lifeless game that is as entertaining as staring at the sun.
On your mark, get set.
I love track and field. Almost every iteration of it has been incredibly interesting with how mechanics are used to accurately represent real true-to-form Olympic events. And then Hypersports was shit out. Hypersports is what happens when Konami decided to be extra about how the events should go. We have swimming, skeet shooting, long horse, archery, triple jump, weightlifting, and pole vaulting. And every single one of these has some stupid gimmick tied to it. Now, people love this game. It was massively successful, but I'm not one of those. The swimming minigame alone made me want to shit lava. We have to spam the run buttons and hit a specific one if we're told we need to breathe, mess up, and we sink to the bottom. The skeet shooting minigame is alright, but long horse was the nail in the coffin for me. We have to run fast, hit the long horse, and beat the shit out of the buttons to rotate and land on our feet. It's hard, and it's not fun. Early shooters, they were a weird, strange frontier. Everyone wanted to be successful like Space Invaders, and the biggest thing that developers could do was to break away from the formula and create their own unique aspect that would stand out. And that's what Konami tried to do with Strategy X, released in 1981. In the game, we control a death Roomba that can shoot in multiple directions. We slowly work our way to the enemy territory, making it to their base, all the while needing to maintain our fuel, which is eaten up rather quickly. The issue I had with this game is that the scrolling of the screen doesn't account for the presence of the enemy, so you'll get shot before the enemy is even on the screen, which is a huge no-no to me. Other than that, it's just kind of generic. Nothing really stands out about it. Ever heard of River City Ransom? This is the first game in the series that would be known as the Kunio-kun franchise, and for many people this is considered one of the first beat-em-ups ever. Between this and Kung Fu, those two games were pivotal in creating a genre that would stand the test of time and be improved on dramatically throughout the years. But as the progenitor of a proper genre, there are massive issues with it. It's isometric, so lining up the attacks properly, it can be a doozy, and the enemies do whatever they want irrelevant to what you input, right? The hitboxes are shitty, and this is just a really rough time. I did beat it, but it wasn't forgiving, nor was it fun. Ocean, the absolute shithole company that they are, would go on to create some bullshit follow-ups to this with Target Renegade and Renegade 3, the final chapter. But Technos would create their own line of fantastic games continuing Kunio's adventures, the most recent being River City Girls 2, which is an awesome game. If you haven't taken the time to play River City Girls 1 and 2, I strongly encourage you to check it out. It's funny, it's fun, it's great. And that's it for today. What did you think of this list? Are there any arcade games that you genuinely hold disdain for? I'd love to hear it down below, and I know that the rest of our community would as well. We all know what arcade games boiled our blood, and it could be an opportunity to cut loose and laugh about what companies made us walk away feeling like we just lit a dollar bill on fire, right? Also, I want to apologize for my vocal quality. I've been struggling with this morning phlegm bullshit that I cannot beat. So if you're a singer or a voice artist or something and you got some weird tips, pro strats if you will, please let me know. If you watched this video to the end, then you're home in our community. We're a group of people who really enjoy remembering a time when life was easier to live. We'd love to have you here. Finally, the single most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly impacts the visibility of the projects and videos that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortefyre out.